Hey everybody, it's Topline Spotlight. It is that short segment every Thursday where me and my co-host AJ Bruno and Asad Zaman, AJ's not here today, but I've got Asad, and we go deep on our guest's business challenge. What we're really trying to do with Topline Spotlight is give you practical tips and tactics on how to solve difficult business challenges, most often in the go-to-market space, but not exclusively. And today we've got Kevin Smith, the CEO and co-founder of Snip. Kevin, give us a little bit of background on you, on the company, and how we got here, and then we'll dive into the challenge.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I'm the founder and CEO of Snip. Snip is an AI-powered podcast app for people like me, and I think a lot of your listeners who listen to podcasts to learn something new every day. So our app actually has a lot of AI features, from transcripts, chapters. We identify the books that get recommended in an episode, and we even let you chat with the podcast episodes. But the most important standout feature, I would say, that our users love the most is we help you save and remember the best insights that you hear in podcasts simply by triple tapping your headphones. So whenever you hear something that you want to remember, you might want to share with someone, you just triple tap your headphones and our AI saves that moment for you together with an AI generated note, so that you can easily come back to it, find it again and remember it.
This is like one of those simple products that is crazy that it didn't exist. And now that it does, it makes the life of somebody like myself who listens to podcasts at an insane rate. It's so helpful. If I'm at the gym and I've catched something that I now want to talk to you guys about on the podcast, like I can quickly snip it. And Kyle is the one who introduced me to it, and then Kevin, and he just is constantly sending me these little pieces of a podcast, and it makes life so much more efficient. And then you start thinking about AI, and you're like, what can I do with that? And you hear something, but you want to actually stop listening to the podcast and go deeper on that other thing. It's like, tell me about this thing now. And the AI can actually facilitate that. So it makes learning and consuming really interesting, and I'm a big fan of the product.
Are you listening to the podcast? So Asad, in that use case, are you listening to the podcast through the Snipd app? It's like a podcast player, or the app is open on your phone? How does it work?
Kevin, tell us about the various ways to interact with Snipd.
Yeah, so Snipd is a fully fledged podcast app. So you do not need another podcast app on the side. We have all of the podcasts that are also available on the Apple Podcast app. Oh, cool. So you could actually be listening to this podcast directly on Snipd and saving the best insights for you.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Well, Kevin, we are here to talk about business challenges. And the reason we do this is we think it's fascinating to learn about problems that other leaders have dealt with and how they thought about solving those problems, the emotional experience of dealing with it, and the results. We think that can be very informative for other leaders. And so tell us a really hairy, intense business challenge that you've had to deal with in the last couple of years.
Yeah, so the story that I chose for today it was basically a moment in our journey where I honestly thought the company might die. We might go bankrupt. And to be honest, just from a personal perspective, emotionally speaking, it was the toughest moment in my entire entrepreneurial journey. So to tell you a story, we have to go back 1.5, almost 2 years. So the situation that we were in, we were slowly but steadily running out of money, and we were a so-called pre-revenue startup, which is a very fancy term to say we were not making any money. And, this was okay up until the end of the zero interest rate period, where it was relatively easy to get more investor money. But that had drastically changed. We were now living in a different world. Interest rates were high. And we knew that even though we had great numbers, we probably couldn't, or maybe it would be very, very difficult. We couldn't rely on just getting more free investor money, especially for, a quote, free podcast app that's not making any money. So we took the difficult decision. Okay, we have to make money. So we sat down, we built a premium version of our app. Up until that point, as I said, everything was for free. And we switched over to the so-called freemium model.
Just before you go into that, can I click into the moment where you realized, shit, I can't raise money. I need to actually figure out how to make money. Did you go through a couple of rounds of like speaking to your existing investors, speaking to new investors and saying, we're building this beautiful thing for the world. It won't make money, but it's really good. Give me some money. And they were just like, no. Like, how did that portion, how did you get to the point where you realized I actually need to figure out how this makes enough money for this to be sustainable and for me to want to do this for the long term as well?
Yeah, I think actually the key is the long term in there, and it's a risk assessment, or that's what it was for us. So we weren't 100%, like it wasn't as if we 100% knew we couldn't raise, and it was also basically we just realized, okay, the world has changed, and we did start talking to our investors. We started talking with external investors, and the story was very clear that, look, this is not the same as 2 years ago. Now we're looking much more for profitability. And yeah, like as long as you're not completely exploding in terms of a ChatGPT kind of level or an Instagram kind of level, it will be very difficult to convince us.
Got it. And so you realize that I need to now figure out how to make this thing make money. And so tell us a little bit.
Maybe just like one additional thought there. I think it was sort of, we had the choice of either we start figuring out how to make money and then we create a much, much, much longer runway, in the best case, an unlimited runway to figure out everything that we want to figure out and get to that point, like this big vision. And then raise from a position of power when we can, when we know it's the right time, or we now bet everything on the next 6 months, what we're going to do there, that this is going to result in whatever the investors might want to see, which was also not clear very time because things had just changed so much from this period.
If people want to understand how difficult this is, think of this is a B2C company, right? And so for listeners, think of the last 10 apps that you bought for $5 or you pay $10 a month for. The bar is high there. And even companies like Netflix and Paramount have such high churn in that space. So this is a difficult problem to solve. Walk us through your process of figuring out the solution and implementing it and the experience of doing so.
Yeah, and I have a question because Kevin, leading to that, like I don't know what your vision was. Was your vision from the beginning, make it as big as possible, everything will be fine, we'll figure it out later? Or did you have if monetized, break glass, and you had like a monetization plan and you were just pulling that plan forward like 2 years earlier than you thought you'd deploy it in your roadmap? Or was it, listen, we hadn't really thought that we needed to ever make money, so we had to kind of make it up from scratch? Like, how much did this catch you off guard? Or was it all like, no, we were going to do this anyway, we're just going to do it a little bit earlier than we thought?
So it was part of our plan to monetize at some point with the freemium model. But we did think that this would be further down the road. We also thought that we would actually put less behind the paywall. This is maybe something for later in the story. So this was definitely one of the changes because we were still smaller and we knew we had to hit a certain amount of revenue. But another aspect that we had was we actually had very good indications from our users that they would actually be willing to pay. So we had all of these stories, of course, anecdotally, but people would reach out to us and tell us, hey, can I actually pay for this? Because I want to make sure that you guys stay around. Like, I know how the startup world works. If you don't charge, like maybe next year you don't exist, and I will hate this. So we had more and more people and conversations like that. But of course, there's always the big question: how does that relate to the your broader customer base? But we also, like in conversations with investors, we actually told them that, like, hey, we are in this podcast space where historically it has been very, very difficult to monetize. But look, we have these indications. And basically the response was they formulated it a bit more nicely, but basically it's like, yeah, sure, we don't believe you. So that was also part of this plan where we sort of felt we were actually quite certain that we could monetize, but investors, we weren't so certain that we could convince investors that we can do that. So the best way to do that is to actually start monetizing and then show them the numbers.
I love that. Okay, so let's jump into the experience. You decide to monetize it. What was the tactic or strategy that you picked for monetizing, and what happened?
Yeah, so we went with the freemium version. So we developed a premium version of the app, for which we developed a couple of additional features that we did not have at the time. But unfortunately, we knew that would not be enough, and we had to unfortunately move some of the core functionality behind the paywall, or at least after we had a cutoff. So the way that it works until today, just to give a bit more context, is you actually get almost all of the AI features in our free version, but as soon as you use them a lot, there's a usage limit, and then you need to upgrade. And we rolled that out. We also tried to communicate it to our users why we're doing this and explain to them what's happening. But nonetheless, we were quite nervous because we knew, okay, we're putting some stuff behind the paywall that was for free. Yeah, so okay, the day comes. We launch Premium. We're quite excited, and it doesn't take long, and we get the first email saying, "You guys, what the heck are you doing?" Then we get a feedback message through our in-app message. "You guys suck." Our Discord channel starts, people starting chatting like, "What the heck is wrong with them? I think they're greedy. They just want to make a quick buck." And all of these, like on all of our channels, these negative messages and upset users, and some, there are always some angry people. So yeah, we start going into
how many messages of this sort do you think went around on that first day between your Discord, your inbox, various other places?
So this is the thing, when I now look back with more distance, the absolute number was not that high, but the way what it felt like for us in the moment was like, this is like half of our user base, especially because we did not have, it wasn't as if the users that thought this was a great idea that we did it, they were not reaching out and telling us, "Hey, great that I'm now paying for this app," even though they were totally fine with it. So yeah, to answer that question, in absolute numbers, probably wasn't actually that much, but it felt like
this is the end now. We tried doing this. This was necessary for survival, and everybody hates us, and everybody hates this app.
Exactly. I mean, this was, also to give a bit more context. So, I mean, I spent a couple of days, like just the entire day, replying to users on different channels, explaining to them why we did this, and that I hope that they still support us. And actually, at the same time, I was just in the final preparations of my wedding. So my wife and I, we were about to get married, and if you probably know how stressful that is. Like the last couple of weeks, you need to get all of these details in order, and it's supposed to be the super joyous phase. And all I could think about is like when I come back from my honeymoon, will there even be a company left? Because they obviously all hate this, and we're not going to make any money, and they're going to stop using our app now, and so that's the end.
Did you have milestones in mind? Like if we get to this, even if it's not all the way there, that'll be enough of a positive indication. Like what happened after the flurry of complaints?
Yeah, so we set some milestones with respect to how many people convert to the premium version. The big thing was that we offered our users a free trial of believe, a month. So we could see how many people were converting to the free trial. And that number was actually good, which helped. However, we did not yet know how many of those people would actually convert to actually paying. So are these just now the users that are saying, okay, I get this for free for a month, I'll take this, and in the meantime, I'll look for alternatives. Yeah. So that was a bit this period where we didn't have the final numbers.
So what happened?
So, I mean, for me, like the moment where everything changed for me was, so again, we're now a couple of days in, and I remember I come to the office in the morning, and all of the other people are already there. My co-founder comes to me and says, "Hey, we got a letter. We got a letter from a user." And I'm like, "Okay." So I take the letter, and I'm like, "So now they're even sending us physical letters now. Like they're like threatening us.
What is their problem?"
Is it letters like cut out of newspapers? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
So I open up the letter, and it's a handwritten letter, 2 pages of user just writing us, "Hey guys, I just wanted to reach out and thank you for building this application. This app has changed my life. I've been wanting this for so many years. It's helped me to become a better human being, to finally remember all of these insights. I'm learning so much more. And I just wanted to write this by hand so that you really know how important this is to me." And I mean, I'm standing there in the middle of our office. Everyone's there, and in that moment, just like all of the emotions, everything that was like bottled up, everything just started. All of the emotions came out. Tears. I started crying like a baby, standing there in front of everyone.
What a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the moment where I just realized, like, wait, yeah, of course, that some people are now upset, but we're going to be all right. Yeah.
And now you're a billionaire.
I wanted to highlight this story because I think it's so important when we are interacting with companies that are trying to build something new and we are having magical experiences, that we let them know, because that one letter was enough to get you past those hundreds of messages that were net negative, right? It allowed you to see clearly, look at the data and say, actually, no, this will work. We're moving along in the right direction. And so I just think it's an amazing story.
I love it.
Yeah. And I still have that letter.
So fast forward to today, business is doing well, premium subscribers, you feel good about things. We can keep using Snip.
Yes, we can keep using Snip. I feel good about what we're doing. I feel good about our users, about our premium users. I feel good about our vision. Yeah, I'm very glad that we got through that.
Awesome. Well, the last thing I think is highly relevant for you, particularly because you're snipping stuff every day. You're a snipper. What do you call them, by the way? Like your most devoted fans, you call them snippers or snippas?
Yeah, sometimes snippers. Yeah.
All right, so we like to share to the point, right? This is a part of the podcast where you can snip because it's, hey, what are your book recommendations? What are your ideas? So everybody, if you've got Snipped, now's the time. Tap
Sam, you're like a product marketer right there. Look at that.
Yeah, you want to know the truth? Is that it's really freaking hard building a company, and if they come on here, I want to help them sell some stuff. To be honest,
no, I love the use case you identified. You snip this.
So let's get snipping. That's our new catchphrase. Let's get snipping. Tell us something that you learned recently that you think we should know.
Something I learned recently.
Could be a book you read. Could be a podcast you listen to.
Okay, so just yeah, of course. I mean, I get 95% of the insights and knowledge from podcasts. So I think this is from the podcast that I listened to yesterday. And I loved how, so it was with the founder of Granola. That is a AI note-taking app for video calls. So there is some overlap to what we're doing, but in a very different field. And I just loved how he thought about, like there are a lot of AI note-taking apps out there, and there have been for 5 years or something like that. But what they usually do is they try to take away the note-taking from you entirely, which means they are trying to take away your entire thinking process, and you're outsourcing that to the AI. And what they actually did was say, no, we're not here to remove your thinking. We want to use AI to augment your thinking, to make you give you a superpower in your thinking. And they have built a product where the product decisions resemble that kind of thinking behind that, which I personally really love. And is something that I also think about a lot with Snip, where we don't want to take the learning away from you and the thinking, but we just want to augment it and help you get there faster. And I think a lot of AI products, a lot of product managers out there, I think can use that kind of analogy mindset a lot when thinking about how to integrate AI into their product.
I love it. And Granola, if I'm not mistaken, almost to your point of like not having to replace existing tech, you use it on your phone and you just start recording, but you could record this conversation as opposed to having it plugged into the computer. And that way it's not one more note taker app. That's like trying to barge into Zoom. Yeah. Super cool. Kevin, thanks so much. If folks want to get in touch with you, are you open to that? What's the best way for them to reach you?
Definitely. I think it depends on what kind of context, but I'm on Twitter, or formerly X. My handle is Kevin Ben Smith. And yeah, that's usually the easiest way to reach out.
Awesome. Kevin, thanks so much for being on the show. It was great meeting you, and congrats on the success.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hey, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.